Daddy! Let Neptune strike ye dead, Winslow!
All right, have it your way.
I think having seen it now, it had to be a real challenge, physically and every other way for an actor, especially, going into those locations and what this movie's about.
I mean, the kind of the challenges of the part, I sort of, with a good kind of challenges where you know that there's something special in the script and you're just not entirely sure if you can just get there. And so that's always the kind of best world to be in, I think. And then the kind of conditions, I just always think rough conditions really help things. As soon as I want to get to the point where you act as little as possible, and so the more of the kind of rain spray. If you're basically drowning, it's kind of easy to act like you're drowning. So it's kind of like, I try and make everything, try and limit any attempt to act as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I heard they had storms and things that hit that location in Nova Scotia, but then they added supplemental wind and rain just to make it a little more fun.
Yeah, there were waves that were, there's a shot with waves going over the top of the lighthouse, and that was happening.
Wow.
I mean, there were enormous waves.
This director is very impressive, Robert Eggers, and you've worked with, I looked at a list, you went, after Twilight, you just dove into the indie world, into the independent cinema, and worked with these great directors. My personal favorite, Lost City of Z. I love that movie.
Nice.
I'm obsessed with it. But one after another, and it seems like you are drawn to these kinds of films, these unique kind of films.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the directors are like quite sort of iconoclastic. They have, I think it's just, I think because you need to be a certain type of person to make personal movies. I mean, it's hard. I mean, even when you're just writing something, you're going to have your own self-doubt nagging at you, and then to try and get money for it and everything. At every step of the way, there's an obstacle. So you need someone whose personality is like incredibly stubborn, and then to not end up with a kind of bastardized version of what your original intention was. And with all these directors I'm working with who end up with these incredibly personal visions, and you can really see that it's their movie afterwards. It's more fun. It's more fun to work with them. It's more, I don't know, you feel like it's safer in some ways because you know it's not just going to end up a sort of half-assed mess.
Working with Willem Dafoe, who was in this chair a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago. He's an amazing actor, just extraordinary. And the two of you playing off of each other with that very distinct dialect and dialogue, which looked like it was taken right out of Herman Melville, which I think it was, and and different places like that. Had to be something. Did you have a big rehearsal period with him to get to the place that is in this film?
We had a week of rehearsals, but I've kind of, I think I just don't know how to rehearse because I've never done theatre, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, I love that moment when you first, I don't even really want to see a set that much before you're there, like, because your senses are so much more, well, mine are more alive to it. Like, as soon as I kind of get used to something, then you feel like you have to just generate it, and then as soon as I start generating something, my sort of self-doubt starts kind of kicking in and blah, blah, blah. Whereas if you're just reactive, if you just I rehearse by myself, but there's something, I don't know, there's something about performing when you don't feel like you're ready to, that I am not comfortable doing. And Willem and Robert are both from theatre backgrounds in a lot of ways and love rehearsing. So there's this kind of sort of strange environment. I mean, to be honest, with rehearsals, I just think I'm going to get fired Whereas if we're just like, if we're shooting already, it's like, it's too late. Like, yeah, you can't fire me now. It's like, I'm not going to show you what I do.
You've got a plan
And
here.
I just got to get the cameras rolling. It's like, convince, say whatever you need to say.
That's classic insecurity for an actor. I hear actors saying this kind of thing all the time. Major actors, people like you know, and you still have that in the back of your mind. Is that what you need to do this?
I think it's real. I don't even think it's paranoia. I mean, I think like there's yeah, I mean, it's sort of, especially with something like this where it's, I know it's really, really good, and I know it's sort of down to you to mess up, and that's like the sort of, like all the pieces are in place, and don't mess it up, and it's kind of, and it's also, that is where you should try and be every single movie, but it's also the part where it's kind of scary. But I think it's much scarier if you're doing something where you're repeating yourself, or if you feel comfortable. I think it's actually more dangerous for your career. Like, you'll end up, you know, if you just took it easy and didn't really try anything different, I don't think you're going to be happy with the result anyway. Even if everybody else likes it, you're going to look at it as a sort of personal failure in a way. So that it's kind of better to just try and take the leap of faith.
It's, well, you certainly obviously have taken to acting and a natural doing it, especially since you said, I mean, you were in some theater in your younger years, right?
I went to a kind of youth repertory thing, which was great, and like, but even then, when I was doing it, I didn't think, oh, this is. I loved it, but it was so far beyond my comprehension, the idea of doing it as a job. It was still beyond my comprehension until I was like 20. I mean, it's kind of, and I'd done a few movies before I'd even realized, like, oh, you can sort of continue to do this. And I still think, I mean, like, I whenever I have a job, I'm just like, it's so, I don't know, you get so used to the idea of thinking you're going to be constantly unemployed all the time, that it's kind of, I mean, it's just always terrifying. And also, most of the time, the movies I try and go after, they take such a long time to come into fruition that I do end up, like the last 4 years, I start the year and I don't have a job, and it's kind of terrifying. And then you do jobs which you really find really satisfying, and then you think like, well, if I do a job I don't really want to do now, and then it's kind of not as cool as the stuff that I've been doing, then you kind of feel like you're going backwards anyway. So then you have to just wait and keep searching for these little gems.
Which you've done so successfully. When you look at movies like Rover and like Lost City of Z and on down the list of these smaller movies you've done, right to this one, The Lighthouse, which got extraordinary reviews for both the film and for you. I mean, awards buzz right out of Cannes. That's all we heard, you know. And that's got to feel good, but those are risky things. You don't know.
Yeah, but it's kind of like, I think it's more risky to try and chase the audience. I think, like, especially because if the audience has so many options to choose from anyway, like, who knows what an audience member is going to think. So you might as well, if you have the chance to do anything, you should be doing it for yourself, because the only person you can guarantee who's going to be interested in something in an audience is you. And so, like, it's kind of, I know the movies I'm going to do, I assume that there's at least one other person in the world who's vaguely similar to I am. So, like, but if I'm just trying to go for the kind of amorphous, like, audience in the abstract sense, like, I know I'm gonna not, if I don't want to do it, then I know no one's gonna want it.